Support for the Klyph Notes podcast comes from Acapella Apparel, an idea born from a love of hip-hop, funk, and soul music and its surrounding cultures. With fashion being a huge visual part of the cultures, they've created expressive images to pay homage, invoke nostalgia, and showcase the elements that make up the lifestyle and cultures of these genres. Acapella, apparel for the music lifestyle. For more information, check out acapella.com. That's AKEPELE.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, the show you're about to listen to may contain explicit content. So guess what? You need to put them babies to sleep. This is for grown folks only. So we're not held liable for anything you might be offended by. Thank you for listening.
Oh my God.
All right, so we're just going to jump right in.
Cool.
Yes, y'all. Welcome back. It's another episode of the Klyph Notes podcast. Thank you once again for listening, man. Remember, you can check out the podcast on the website, djklyph.com. Also available at all of your favorite podcast listening stations, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Google Play and TuneIn and Stitcher. And like wherever you listen to podcasts, you can check it out. So check it out, comment, rate, share, and, let folk know about really good music. Also, big ups to X-Ray FM for being so kind and gracious with allowing us to use this space to have such great conversations. Check out www.xray.fm.com for all kinds of great content that is live right out of Portland, Oregon. All right, so this one's really, really cool. I'm really honored to have this person in here because of her status as one of the biggest and best on the planet. As she blushes. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, Klyph. Thanks for having me. This is Portia Sabin. I am the owner of the independent record label Kill Rock Stars, and I'm the host of The Future of What, which is also here on X-Ray FM.
Right?
Yeah.
It's my sister in broadcast here.
That's right.
How you been, man?
Good. How about you?
I'm really good. I'm excited. I'm excited for this opportunity.
Me too.
To be on this side of the microphone now,
I
Portia.
know.
Portia was Portia was cool enough to have me on her podcast, The Future of What, which was really, really exciting. Because I don't really get to be on that side of the microphone. And it's, sometimes it's kind of cool to share your story.
Exactly.
So, a couple questions, like right off top. The future of what?
Yes.
Like, where'd that come from? The future of what?
The future of what? Yeah, totally. Well, okay, there's sort of two stories here. Right. So the one is that X-Ray started, and they, I donated, when they started their first campaign before they went live. Mm-hmm. And then a year later, they sent me an email and they were like, hey, you donated to us in the first year. Would you like to donate again? Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, but I have an idea for a show.
Right.
Thinking I will never hear from these people again. Instead, I got a phone call and they were like, what show? What are you thinking about? Yeah. And I was like, really? You called me? So now X-Ray and I are total bows now. I love them. I mean, I'm a huge supporter. Yeah. But it's funny. It's just funny that, I was kind of in a bad mood that day. And they were just like, someone actually called me and talked to me like a person. So it was amazing. But the real reason for the show is I was thinking about, the music business has a terrible reputation, had a terrible reputation, especially record labels. And I think that's largely because of major labels, because of the way that artists have been treated by major labels for decades. But when this revolution happened with the internet and people started being able to download music for free, and it was like it went from, one day we at record labels had a product that we could sell, and the very next day people were like, no, music is free. And it was that instant shift. And I think one of the real reasons that happened so easily is because of the bad reputation of major labels, because people were saying, well, the artist isn't going to get paid anyway. Mm-hmm. So why should I bother spending money on this? So I've been in the record label business for 20 years. I know a ton of people, and all we do all day long is try to help artists have careers and make money and be able to not have to be a barista or not have to have a day job, but actually be career artists. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I want to do a show where I talk to the people that I know who actually do this, because they're thousands of people out there who do this on a daily basis trying to help artists make a living. And it's gotten harder and it's gotten more complicated, but, we're out there and we're doing it. So that was the idea of the Future of What.
That's what's up, man. It's the way that you described it is truly what it is. I mean, as I've begun to listen more and more to the podcast, I've learned so much. And in my position more as a curator, there's so much that I think, even just as a consumer and a listener, you sort of assume and take for granted. And by listening to your expertise and then the expertise of people who you've had on the podcast, so much has been really eye-opening to me. It just gives you such a different perspective. And then I feel like I want to help share that. I want to expand that reach because I think that there are so many. And I don't know, I'm speaking from my own perspective. Like if I was an artist, that information is invaluable. And I just, hope those people who are trying to come up in the industry get an opportunity to hear that, to be educated as they're moving forward. Okay, so before we get too far, I want to take a minute to go back a little bit.
Okay.
So I was kind of, man, and I feel horrible because I'm so bad at, like, I get old man brain. But I read this article that was it was a really, really good article, and it was really your history, the history of the label, how you became connected with the label. You know what? I should have even asked this before I turned the microphones on. Should I now call you Dr. Sabin?
You can call me Dr. Sabin. I earned that.
Yes, you did.
I worked hard.
Yes, you did. So let's go back, Portia, and let's talk about how you came to be where you are from your beginnings to being the president of this label.
So I grew up in New York City in Hell's Kitchen, and I
Dude, I was about to make the most corny joke. I was about to say, so do you know Daredevil? But see, that's not.
But that's exactly right. At least you know that. I'm so glad that at least now we have a couple shows set there so people know what Hell's Kitchen is. Because when for years, no one's ever known where Hell's Kitchen was really. But now they know. Yeah. And that was my hood. And it was, it was bleak in many ways. It's funny, when we moved there, I was 9 years old, and it was a poor neighborhood, but it was a stable neighborhood. Yeah. And the reason it was a stable neighborhood is it was run entirely by the Irish mob.
Oh, wow.
And in 1984, the police kicked the Irish mob out and that place went downhill so fast. I mean, we had crack vials in my little foyer. We had a little foyer. It's like one locked door and another locked door, so there's no like doorman or anything. It was just like a tiny square.
Yeah.
But there were crack vials in there and like little crack baggies and stuff, like overnight as soon as the Irish mob was out.
Yeah.
So it was it went real rough. And then it came back because they built that Worldwide Plaza, which is that big, tall building between 50th and 49th. And that was being built the entire time I was in high school. And by the time so that was like, crack, prostitution, drugs, the day I entered as a freshman. The day I walked out as a senior, it was like, wine bars and we're getting thrown out because we can't afford the rent anymore. I mean, it was gentrification in 4 years. It was crazy. Wow. That neighborhood just went, it was night and day. Anyway, that's way off track. That's early.
Yeah.
I always loved music. I was a huge music fan in a way that resonated with almost nobody. I had like 3 friends that I could talk to about music and make mixtapes and stuff. And I bought a bass guitar and an amp when I was 14 and then didn't play it. I mean, had no one to play with till I got to college, basically, because I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. All the boys had already started playing guitar when they were like 12, so I was like not good enough to play with them. Yeah. And I was shy, and there were no girls doing it, so I was just like, I can't do this. So it wasn't until college that I actually just had, enough of sense of self to be like, forget it, I don't care if I don't know how to play, we're going to play. Yeah. I mean, the day I started playing drums, which turned out to be my instrument of choice, the very next day I was in a band.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was like, no, I don't know how to play. We're playing.
Yeah.
And it was all guys. I loved that about college. It was like all these guys were like, sure, we'll play with you, the drummer that's never played drums before. Okay.
Yeah.
It was very liberal arts.
Yeah.
So anyway, I played drums, and when I got out of college, I moved back to New York, and I just wanted to play in a band. Got into a band immediately the first day, using the Village Voice classified section prior to the internet.
So classic, dude.
Classic,
so
right?
Classic.
And it was great, and I was totally down. And then I didn't know really. I was like, my mother is not going to be okay with this. She's strict, and she was like, I would prefer you to be doing something with your life. So I was like, what can I do with my life that will be looking like I'm doing something with my life? So I enrolled in grad school. And that took care of like years. It was amazing. So I got to play in bands and make records and tour and do all that good stuff and just also be in grad school handily, and have a part-time job. And, so it was busy, but it was great. And that was, my whole 20s was playing rock and roll and learning about everything and seeing the world. And it was fun.
Yeah. And you toured quite a bit, right?
Yeah, we toured quite a bit with the one band that actually started to like get some momentum going. But this was in the day before the internet. So
yeah,
it was
that band
good.
was...
We were called the Hissy Fits.
The Hissy... Word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Hissy Fits.
Okay. That wasn't in the article.
Yeah, they
So
didn't mention
the
that.
Hissy Fits.
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Oh, funny.
Maybe just, I don't know where, but I know I've heard the Hissy Fits.
Oh, that's funny.
Wow, that's what's up. So played for a while and then moved on from being an artist
to being a manager. When I left the Hissy Fits, I started managing some friends' bands because I had gotten just a little bit of knowledge. We had worked with a label and we'd done a lot of touring and we had, some stuff. I knew a couple things. So I started to help other people. And at the same time, I was already dating the guy that I eventually married, my husband, who ran Kill Rock Stars. He's the guy who started Kill Rock Stars in 1991. And so we dated long distance for a long time, and I did this management thing. I started my own management company. And then eventually we got married. I moved out to the West Coast. And then he said one day, like out of nowhere, he was like, hey, do you want to take over the label and shut it down? And I was like, And at the time, I'd gotten my PhD, I got my doctorate. I was doing a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Washington, which I was really not enjoying because one reason was I was commuting from Olympia to Seattle every day, which is rough.
Ooh, yeah.
That's not, this is bad. That's a bad commute. And I was also in the process of managing a band called The Gossip that were going gold in the UK. So I was like traveling to Seattle every day and then flying to London like every month. It was crazy. It was an insane amount of stress that time. And he just was like, do you want to do this? And I was like, I thought about it and I was like, well, this is my chance, right? To actually move into the music world 100% because right now I'm straddling the line. Yeah. And I knew enough about myself to know I don't want to be a tenured professor. That's not actually where my heart lies. I love teaching, but I don't want to be tied to, I don't want to go like teach at the University of Tulsa for the rest of my life, like just be in one place.
Right.
I really felt like music was where my heart was. So I was like, yes, let's do it. So he's like, great, I'm getting a job and we're moving to New York. So we moved to New York like 2 months later and it was so chaotic. And I ran the label while flying to London constantly for the first year, remotely from the entire staff. So the whole rest of the staff was on the West Coast. Oh, wow. And I was on the East Coast and I was flying to London all the time. It was crazy. So the first year is like a blur. Yeah. But I did realize when I came up for air, I had signed a band and I was like, ooh, I like this. Right. I was like, I don't want to shut this down. We're actually doing stuff. I'm into it. Yeah. So while I had been in New York, a couple of my employees had moved to Portland and started an office in Portland. So my husband got laid off from his major label job and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, let's get out of here. Let's go back to the West Coast. So we ended up moving to Portland and starting the label here. I mean, joining that office. And that was 2007. So 11 years ago. We've been here ever since. And It's been great.
That's so crazy, man. To be able to take something that you were passionate about and then have it become your career, it's got to feel really good.
It does. And it's like my friends from high school are not surprised, but they're like the only ones who are not surprised because there was that whole middle part of my life where I was doing academia. Right. I mean, it took me 9 years to get through grad school, so people thought I was going in a different direction. Right. But all my friends from our early days are like, oh yeah, of course we knew this is where you were going to end up.
Well, so, it's interesting though to hear you tell the story that way because I feel like you have continued to teach. Like when you listen to the podcast and you listen to The Future of What, I think you get a lot of that just in the way that you share information that, like I said at the beginning, to me is very informative. And that's probably has a lot to do with the relationships that you've built and the people that you invite to be on the podcast. But it's like you're using the training that you got as a teacher and sharing that forward. So So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you, Dr. Varen, for all the hours and years you put into me, that it's not wasted completely.
That's what's up, man. So, man, a couple different things. I've really enjoyed. I've been introduced to a lot of people via the podcast. Some episodes that stand out. Some of the more recent episodes. The episode that you did with Erst was really, really good.
Oh, so good.
Because I love Blossom and I love Neil Von Talley. They're just two amazing people. But it was really cool to hear, I think maybe coming from the perspective of someone that runs a label, sort of the information that you glean from them as a label, as a newer label, as kind of a startup. It was really, really good information. I wonder, because you've been doing this as long as you have, do you have people come to you seeking guidance, seeking advice, like one-on-one, like people calling you or hitting you up, so like, yo, Portia, I'm so-and-so from so-and-so, and I want to do this, help?
Yeah, all the time, definitely. Yeah. And consulting is something that I will do for people. You know, I always feel like that's one of those things that I can do. So I like to help people where I can.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always happy to answer questions or talk to people. I always, like with bands, you know, most of the time I'll just do it. I'll get together with them for an hour and do it. But some people I'm like, yeah, I charge $250 an hour.
Yeah. Sure, I'd love to.
So
for this
be careful, exactly.
Yeah. But that's gotta, you know, I don't know, man. I look at at what you do at the future of what as just this gift to artists. Have you gotten directly related to the podcast any feedback from an artist that says, wow, I didn't know that. Thank you so much for
all the time. And that's honestly, I'm so happy about that. That makes me feel like it's totally worth doing, and it keeps me doing it every week. You know, it keeps me happy and keeps me feeling like we're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Because these are questions that people have, and it's a ridiculously hard business, and it's really opaque. Like there's no, you know, when you start to play music, the playing of music with friends is such a powerful feeling that you want that. You want more of that, right? What you don't want at that point is all this boring business crap that's in the background. But the problem is if you get good at this part, all of this stuff is really there. You have to pay attention to it. And so it's like almost not fair, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but I just wanted to play with my friends. We're having a good time and I love it. And then unfortunately, I also have to know about LLCs and PROs and all this stuff. And it's like, if we can make that easier for people, I would love to do that, you know?
Yeah.
It's the least we can do.
Which is awesome, because I think those are things you just don't even think about. I mean, I think sometimes you don't even necessarily think about the business side of it at all.
No.
So, you know, this is sort of my perspective. Another recent episode that you did, you were speaking with a young lady. You guys spent quite a bit of time talking about Spotify. And I remember from my perspective, sort of the thought of, man, if I'm an artist, and I know that I was either reading something or listening to something, and an artist was sharing that they were telling people about, you listen to my album, whatever, and the person they were talking to said, well, are you on Spotify? Because that's how I listen to all my music. So then from the artistic perspective, I would think, I want to do whatever I can to get on Spotify just to expand my reach, right? But then that's the way you think about everything. My Bandcamp, I want to get on iTunes, I want to get out there. So what can I do to get out there? But one of the things that you share is, yes, that's all well and good, but do you know what that really means? And is that the best thing? That sort of information that as an artist you just don't think about.
Totally. You have different things driving you when you're an artist, and especially at different points in your career.
Yeah.
And, you know, Blossom said something on that one podcast that you're talking about that I thought was really, really important for people to hear, which is you don't take the stuff that you have super seriously until you see how other people are using it, because she said she found out that her face was on a poster somewhere,
for
like for a show that she wasn't even playing, like it was completely unrelated to her. And she was just like, oh, and that's the kind of thing that shows you, like, no, you have something that other people value, even if it's just your image. And so then you start to understand why it's important, why some people get crazy about controlling stuff like that. You know, I mean, there's always been stories about, you know, rock stars that you're just like, oh my God, can you believe, like, Beyonce won't let people, you know, have photos of her, like she doesn't do selfies or whatever. And it's like, well, you start to realize that these people realize that they have a property in themselves that's valuable and that people want, and that, you know, you're going to get images out there you do not want to see if you're not careful.
Right. It's so, and again, it's just so crazy to, to have to think that way. And I sometimes, I've asked artists before, some of the local artists that I've gotten to know, does that get in the way of the creative process? Like when you're having to manage all of these things, does that get in the way of the creative process? And I think you asked the question. It might have been to Blossom about, having a manager or an assistant or somebody to sort of help with the minutia of what you're doing so that you could focus on the art.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to tell y'all answer. Y'all need to go listen to it. It's the Heirs episode of The Future of What's really, really good. But just like that, like those little pearls that you drop, I think are really cool things for people to just think about, to consider that maybe they wouldn't think about otherwise.
Well, thank you for saying that, but I would like to point out that it is my people that I talk to who have dropped those pearls. It's not me. So I think it's more of the people I talk to. I've just been so lucky.
Yeah.
I talk to the most terrific and smart and interesting people, and they've always got brilliant stuff to share that I don't know walking in. I love that when an interview takes a left turn and you're like, oh, I just learned something.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we're going to go down this rabbit hole.
Right. I had a question about sort of the things that you do, the things that you've done, the successes that you've had. And I was reading something, and they mentioned that you are one of a smaller number of female record label presidents, or females that run a label. And I'm curious as to how you view that. Is it important to you to be identified as a female that runs a label versus as a successful label president?
That's a good question, and that's a nice way to put it. I think it's the whole thing with gender is it's more important that we're just out there, mm-hmm. and that people see. It's like when they have a lineup of people on a stage, and it's like these are all label presidents, mm-hmm. that they see men and women, mm-hmm. So I don't necessarily need to run around. Like once Willamette Week, I think it was Willamette Week, or I'm not even sure if it was. I shouldn't call them out, but somebody gave us an award. Mm-hmm. It was Best Female Run Record Label of the Year, and I was like, right. It was like, well, that's me and who?
Right. Yeah.
I just won that for myself. Like I was against nobody. It didn't feel good. Mm-hmm. It didn't feel good and special to be singled out in that way. Yeah. I think it's more important that we're just out there, mm-hmm. and that we're just visible, mm-hmm. So I always love it when I meet women who run record labels. It makes me really excited. But it also makes me excited to meet men who run record labels because it's a specific job, and I like to be able to talk to those people about what we do. Yeah. I think, I don't know why there are so many more guys who start record labels other than ladies, but I would imagine that it has something to do in our culture with just, to invest in bands, you have to have really strong opinions about music. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that women are encouraged all the time to have such strong opinions, like I'm going to put my money where my mouth is opinions. Right. But that's like anecdotal. I don't have any real evidence for that.
Yeah. I asked because I remember I had an opportunity to do an interview with a local artist who goes by the name of Win. And I am a fan of just really good MCs. And she happens to be a female. And whenever I talk about her, when I play her songs, or, I always want to show respect as someone who is a minority in this genre. And sometimes females in hip hop are celebrated not as much for their skill, even though we say that. Mm-hmm. But hip hop has also been a pretty male dominated genre for many, many years from the beginnings. Mm-hmm. But for me, I feel like I would put Win up against any number of guys. So I just want to talk about her as a dope MC versus female MC. And I do see both sides of it, because then she shared that it's cool when young people or parents come up to her and say, oh, my daughter is such a fan of you. So in that sense, it's cool that she's a female standing out that way.
Exactly.
But celebrating her for her skill as an MC versus a female MC.
Exactly.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, and I think we can do both. Mm-hmm. I think we can sort of walk that line all the time.
Yeah.
She is amazing. I think I found her through you, but I went and watched a bunch of her videos, and I was just like, oh my God.
So dope. Oh, she's so
really
dope.
Good.
She is so dope.
This makes me jealous. I wish I could do that.
Right?
I'm a lousy MC.
Some of the things that I are changing with the label is so from the beginnings, for folk who don't know, Give a little synopsis of why Kill Rock Stars? Like, what was the idea of starting that label, and how it's maybe changed a little bit from. Well, let me just ask you that. So, what was the idea of starting that label? Like, what were you folks?
Well, so my husband started it in 91, and he started it for two reasons. One was to document the scene in Olympia, Washington, as it was at the time. And the other was to put out spoken word records because he was a spoken word artist and his friends were spoken word artists. And there was like 20 seconds in the early 90s when spoken word was a viable thing that you could actually record and sell and people would buy.
Yeah.
So the first release on Kill Rock Stars is a split 7-inch with him on one side and Kathleen Hanna on the other side. And she started a band called Bikini Kill with some other people. And so then that record came out on Kill Rock Stars. And but the second release that wasn't a 7-inch, the first full length, was a compilation. And one of the bands on the compilation was Slim's next door neighbor, Kurt Cobain's band Nirvana. And that compilation came out in like September of 91, and Smells Like Teen Spirit, Nevermind came out in like August of 91. So that comp sold 25,000 copies like right out of the gate.
Wow.
And funded the label.
Okay. So
he just took all that money and just put it right back in and started putting out a whole bunch of records. Yeah. So that's where it started. That's how the label started. And the political and social angle of the label when it started was social justice, equality, feminism, queer positivity, and putting out bands that had something to say. So the Riot Girl movement is a lot of Riot Girl bands are on Kill Rock Stars, sort of centered in Olympia and DC at that time. Yeah. And I feel like, over the years, it's been 27 years. Things have come and gone up and down, and we've tried different types of things, but that's been the through line is we're interested in artists who have something to say. And I feel like in 2012, when we started putting out comedy records, alternative comedy, that we really got back to those roots because I really started feeling like this is where we're seeing people who have something to say about social justice, something to say about politics, and who are true and are speaking their own in their own voices. Yeah. So I felt a real connection back to the early 90s bands at Kill Rock Stars. I also think that we're, I've said this before because I think it's absolutely true. I don't think we're going to sell a band of 5 white dudes. I don't think that we're going to do that. Yeah. That's just not really what the people who come to Kill Rock Stars are looking for. They want to hear women's voices. They want to hear queer voices. They want to hear diversity. Like, I feel like we have that going. That's kind of what we are. Yeah. And I like that because I didn't necessarily come to that immediately. I tried some stuff. I tried to sign 4 white dudes from LA playing synth music. And it was like, nobody was interested. And I was like, oh man, what's going on? Yeah. But the stuff that I put out where it's a little more interesting and, the person has a real perspective, I think, that connects with our listeners better. So I do feel like that's our through line as a label.
It's interesting to me because I oftentimes ask artists, do you feel the pressure of doing what's hot? Even if it's maybe, especially for younger artists who are coming up still trying to find their voice. And I may hear something in an artist where I think, I'm not going to put his name out there, but there's an artist who I love who's putting out material right now. And he's put out quite a bit of material. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's dope. That's dope. Because really, really cool guy. And he let me hear some music that he'd done that was a little bit different from what he put out. And I was like, you messed up. You should have never let me hear you rhyme like that. You cannot do that other trap, whatever, no more. Because at heart, he's a conscious rapper. Oh. Somebody who's saying something. And I definitely gravitate towards that. So point being, when that's what seems to be moving people, I guess good for you for recognizing, maybe that's what's happening over there. But that's not what we're about. We need to stay true to our foundation. Was that tough?
It was a little tough. I remember having a conversation with my husband in 2011 or something, maybe 2010, where I was like, we're going to sign the next Arcade Fire. And he was like, nope. And I was like, hey, wait a minute. I can sign an Arcade Fire. Why can't I sign it? I can sign an Arcade Fire. And then now, years later, I'm like, something, I think he's right. I don't think, Arcade Fire is maybe not the perfect example because I think, they had some aspects of the type of band that we could have signed. Yeah. But it's more like, we're not going to sign the next popular we're not going to sign the next thing that shoots to the top of the charts.
Yeah.
That's just not really our wheelhouse. But I feel good about that. I like our wheelhouse. I like where we're at. I love it that, we signed the Portland band Summer Cannibals, and that record did really well. And I'm like, that's what we are. We're like punk. We're women. We're, people with, you don't have to be angry, but you have to have some passion. There has to be some energy and some interest in the music. So I feel like I'm okay with that. I love that music.
Yeah.
That's what makes me happy.
And then so on that, in that sense, it's got to feel good to feel like this is my lane. Like if you want to get down with us, this is what we're about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I can look at other labels and be like, man, I wish I'd signed that band, or I wish I'd signed that band. Yeah. But I'm not sad that this is where we're at. It's like if I woke up tomorrow and we were actually like a, I don't even know, like a smooth jazz label, I might be sad.
Right. Yeah.
I don't love smooth jazz.
It's a little bit different. It's interesting in sort of, coattailing on what you mentioned. It's interesting that you went the direction of comedy, because comedy seems to, when I look back at some of the comedians that I have been fans of through the years, it does seem to be that genre, that form of entertainment where I can be who I am. Mm-hmm. I don't have to try to be like the popular person, the person who's selling out, whatever. I have this microphone and I have your ear, so you're going to listen to me.
Exactly.
It does seem like that's a really great way for you guys to move. Like you said, that's sort of a throwback to the beginnings of the label.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And we've been very careful. We're very curatorial about it. We only pick people that we really think are the right thing for the label. Yeah. Which I love, And I can't tell you how many agents from Hollywood have called with some white dude who's 25 who tells dick jokes. Yeah. Can I say that?
Yeah. You're okay. Good. You're at home.
And I'm just like, I'm sorry, are you confused?
Yeah.
But see, that's what I want. I want people to be able to look at what we've put out and be like, oh, wow, this doesn't fit at all.
Right.
Yeah.
If
you're sending me, a metal band with a naked lady on the ground with, like, smell the glove. Right. That's not, that's not for us,
Yeah. It makes me wonder, though, Portia, because, see, I feel like stuff like that I would imagine probably does happen more often than not when people are not paying attention to the art. If people see Kill Rock Star's logo enough, and in their mind they think, oh, I need to mess with that label. I'm an agent. I need to get my folk on that label just because I see it so much, but don't take the time. Because I feel like, man, and this is just me being old, I guess, but I feel like now there's so much content out there for us to access that we can be really, really lazy, especially as consumers. And you hope it wouldn't be that way when that's your profession, that you would do a little research and see. But is that a real perception that people are just lazy when it comes to paying attention to the content that's out there?
Well, so, that sort of gets back in a way to that conversation that I was having with Liz Pelly about Spotify, because it's like, are you making music because you love the music that you're making and it's your art, or are you making the music because you want to get fans? Like commerce and art, it's that fine line, right? Yeah. And I feel like that's a thing that every artist has to think about all the time. Yeah. And every consumer has to think about, because I'm gonna be honest and say that I love some pop stuff, some stuff that's absolutely, nutrition free, right? Like just
brain candy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Since you've been gone, Kelly Clarkson, yes, please, like serve that up. I love it. Yeah. And I think that's a great song, but you know what I mean? Like there's some stuff that isn't politically aware and isn't, particularly whatever.
Yeah.
That I love, and people are going to be like that, and that's okay. Everybody has to be able to do that. But when it's an artist, when artists are faced with this question, you do have to ask yourself that all the time, and it can change too. It's like I don't have a problem with that. An artist wants to have a commercial period in their life where they try to make some stuff that's a little bit more pop or whatever.
Yeah,
great. But I have a lot of respect for people who do it the hard way, because that is what it is. It's the hard way. Yeah. You're making music that's challenging people rather than just served up for you. Like, here you go, beautiful A-B, verse, chorus.
Right.
Just the way you like it.
One of the things that I've heard you say on a number of occasions is you've talked about the benefits, not benefits, you've talked about the real need for artists to be seen physically via touring.
Oh yeah.
The for folk who want to, do this as a career. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I think that the touring aspect of musicianship is, I think, for most people, the most rewarding, right? Because that's where you get out there and you actually get to interact with your fans and they get to see you, and that there's that energy in a room that's not like any other energy, and that's fabulous. Now, every now and then you do get an artist who's got terrible stage fright or they can't handle it for one reason or another. And that's hard, but, people have dealt with that. I remember, what was the band called? Oh, I'm not going to remember. In the 80s where the singer used to play off stage. Do you guys remember that band? It was like an indie rock band, and the guy would stand off stage because he was so terrified.
Wow.
He would play,
Yeah.
but he couldn't actually come on the stage.
I know that Miles Davis used to play with his back to the audience, and I think that there was a little bit of it was easier. I think if I remember reading, but at any rate.
Yeah. So it is hard, but I do think it's critical, right? Because that's where that's where you see the impact of what you make in the studio by yourself. Because it's great to make art, but when you see how people deal with it, it's, I don't know. For most artists, I think that's really what brings it home. It makes them feel like what they're doing is worthwhile. Because of course, then afterwards, everyone comes up and is like, "I love you. You got me through my divorce," or whatever. We played that song at our wedding.
Right.
And also, at this point, you're going to make a lot of your money.
Yeah.
On the road. If you don't tour, I don't know how you're going to make your money.
Yeah. I know that there's an artist right now, and he shares this via his outlets right now. Mike Capes, who's a really doing a great job, I think, of representing not just North Portland but Portland, Oregon. I mean, his brand, I think, is growing. And recently, he's talked about publicly how he is now making music his primary source of income. That's how he's supporting himself, just through music. And sort of the challenges of that, I think he's talked about maybe not doing as many shows just for love anymore, because he's got to pay his bills through this, and has talked about, I think I broke the story during my interview with him that, he's putting together a tour. I mean, he sees the need and benefit of getting outside of Portland. Early on, Portia, when I started building with the local scene, it would make me so sad to find artists like Calvin Valentine and Taupe and Hanif when he went to New York, all local MCs who said, I gotta get out of Portland. And I felt like, no, we gotta keep everybody here in town.
Yeah.
But I think I've learned that no, artists do need to get out. Hopefully you'll come back, but you do need to get out in order to grow. Is my perception correct on that? As a label owner, that people need to get out of their comfortable space?
Well, it really depends. I think it really depends. I mean, one of the problems, and we've talked about this before in Portland, is just affordable housing. Because, 10, 15 years ago, you could be an artist in Portland and you could have a room in a house, you could tour, and we'd be okay.
Yeah.
You could make ends meet. That's happening less and less. It's starting to look like the rest of America.
Yeah.
New York and LA are both really tough cities. Having people move there, at a certain level, I wouldn't recommend it. You got to stay home while you can't afford to live in those bigger cities. When you start to become a bigger artist, you can afford it. Then I do see that there may be opportunities in those cities that aren't here. But, with my other Music Portland hat on, I would say, we have a lot of opportunities in the city. We have a lot of music industry in the city. And what we need to do, and what we're trying to do with Music Portland, is bring all that together in one place so everyone can find it.
Yeah.
So it's not so encapsulated like over here, and nobody knows where it is. It's like instead we can put it in one place so you can find what it is that you need. If you need a producer or you need a engineer or whatever,
Right.
You're going to be able to find that.
Talk about that a little bit. Music Portland. What is Music Portland?
Music Portland is a new nonprofit, just started in 1st of January, pretty much. And we have a couple different missions. We're going to be an advocacy group for music in Portland. We want to bring everybody together under one umbrella, and that's not just musicians and labels. It's also music manufacturers, people who make pedals, who make microphones, marmoset, licensing houses, every business that has music as its heart and soul. We want to bring everybody together because we believe that there's more money coming into the city because of music on one hand than anybody knows, because we've never done an economic study that quantifies it. Mm-hmm. So we're working on a study to quantify that. And on the other hand, we also believe that culturally, music in the city is something that draws people here and that keeps people here because it's so integral to the spirit of Portland and how, why people want to be here. People come to Portland not just for our craft brews and our, locavore food, but also because of, the amazing music.
Right.
So we're trying to bring all those things together. And we're trying to get the city involved. The city has been very good to us so far. They're very interested in having this happen. We're trying to get the city designated. You know how like Austin is a music city and Nashville is a music city? Right. Well, those things happen because they were promoted as such, and we want to do that for Portland as well.
Yeah.
So we're just getting off the ground, but we're pretty excited about it.
Well, I think it's really amazing. Once again, going back to when I first started building with folk here, I was talking to a friend of mine because I'm not a Portland native. So when I moved here and I began to see all that was happening in the city, both organically and then the artists who'd come into the city and then the festivals that were happening here in Portland. And I was saying, man, how come there's not like coming from Louisiana, why didn't I hear about the music scene in Portland? How come we can't kind of take it to the next level? Mm-hmm. My friend was like, there's no industry here. And for me, what it sounds like is it's here, but with Music Portland now, you're bringing it all together.
Well, exactly. I mean, there were some, like I found out about a label the other day that it was a really cool label. Turns out it's in Portland. And I was like, why do I not know that?
Right.
I mean, it's that kind of stuff. It's just, do we know who we even have here in our own city?
Yeah.
And we don't.
No.
So let's pull it together and let's make that happen. It's not that hard to do that, and all you need is a central organization to do it. And so that's what we're trying to provide.
That's what's up. If people are in Portland and they're just hearing about this, or if they're maybe not in Portland, they want to get more information, what's the easiest way to do that, to access, to say, I want to know more about, how can I be involved with Music Portland?
I'm pretty sure it's musicportland.com.
Okay.
But I can get back to you on that specifically. Like I said, January 1st.
Okay.
So,
it's all brand new.
It's all brand new. I don't have, unfortunately, the URL just on my tongue, but
that's what's up, man.
Yeah.
So we are in 2018 now. For the label, for Kill Rock Stars, what's up? What's happening in 2018?
Well, all of our artists delivered albums at the exact same time.
That's so awesome, Portia.
Which is crazy. So we're losing our minds. Mm-hmm. We're going crazy. The first record we have coming out is May 4th. We have the new Horse Feathers record, which I am so excited about. Yeah. I probably shouldn't even say that. I'm supposed to not announce that till February, so.
Oops.
But yeah, so we're super excited about that. That's like, so great. That's a great Portland band.
Cool.
And then we have a bunch of other stuff coming up. We have a couple comedy releases that are going to be, actually, I can say this, next Saturday the 20th at Curious Comedy Theater, we're recording the new Emily Heller record.
Oh, word.
She had the album on Kill Rock Stars that's played the most on Sirius XM on the comedy channels. She's amazing, hilarious, if you haven't heard her. And then we also haven't announced this, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
Exclusive!
Exclusive! February 17th at Curious Comedy Theater, we are recording Frangela, the comedy duo Frangela. Do you know them?
I don't.
Oh, my God. You will.
Okay.
They are incredible. Yeah.
That's what's up.
Frangela.
That's what's up. Okay. Yeah. Really, really exciting. And then any guests on the podcast that we should be looking out for coming up that you can mention, that you can talk about?
I will tell you, we haven't done this yet, but we are going to have to talk about the MMA. Did you hear about that? The Music Monetization Act?
I heard a little bit about it on I feel like you guys touched on it on.
We might have started talking about it. It's a brand new act. It just dropped like January 1st. Like it came out of Congress January 1st. Like I didn't even know it was happening. It's totally out of nowhere. And it would completely restructure the way music publishing is handled.
Oh.
Big deal for the music industry. Huge.
Oh. Okay.
So, and everybehind behind it, which is actually like one of the few times that everybody in the music business has completely pulled together. The labels, the publishers, everybody, they're behind this act. So hasn't been signed into law yet. It's not completely official, but we will definitely be doing a story on that because that's going to change how people do business.
Wow. Okay.
That's a big deal.
Okay, definitely excited for that.
Yeah.
Any local things coming up that you want to talk about?
Well, we're going to have, I don't know if I can talk about that.
Okay,
Man,
y'all stay tuned. Stay tuned for some
Stay
stuff
tuned.
that's
There'll be
happening
more stuff.
that
I
we
don't
can't
know what
really
I
talk
can't
about
talk-
right now.
I don't know what I'm talking about. Non-locally up in Seattle, we're going to have the Upstream Festival
Word.
again,
This
which
the
we did
third-
second
year.
Last year was the first one, and that'll be June 1st up in Seattle.
It's just huge.
A lot of Portland's people going to be involved in that, so that'll be really cool.
Yeah. One other thing I want to touch on as I was reading through this really cool article that everybody should go read that I don't remember where it's at. Just Google Portia Sabin. They talked about you being involved with an awards program for independent labels.
Yes, A2IM, which
Yes.
is the American Association of Independent Music. That's the trade association for indie labels in the U.S. 500 members, so every indie label you can think of is a member.
Wow.
And if you're not a member and you're listening, you should definitely try to get involved because it's a great organization. About 8 years ago, I started. I was like, hey, they were like, we should have an awards show. Who wants to run that? And I was like, I'll do it. So I was like, I know how to throw a rock show.
Right.
Like, how hard could it be? You book a venue and you have an hour of open bar. Boom, you're done.
Right.
And so now 8 years later, we just had our 6th last summer, and we'll have the 7th this summer. June 21st in New York City, and last year we had over 1,000 people at the event, and we've had, I think, 6 bands play, and Ani DeFranco was the Lifetime Achievement winner, and Nick Lowe won an award for Independent Icon. I mean, it is a beautiful,
That's pretty cool.
Beautiful thing.
That's pretty cool.
Very cool.
Well, it's cool to see. I think oftentimes we sort of look at what's out there, and in order to be recognized, there's somebody who's doing that, and so we have to be a part of that. And maybe we're not really a part of it, but that's what we have to support. So I think to have an idea and then to just move on it and make it happen, I think it teaches us that sometimes our biggest limitation is just ourselves.
Absolutely.
You with the stuff that we've talked about and probably stuff we haven't talked about, you seem to continue to do that. Just okay, sorry, Nike, just doing it. You know what I mean?
I always think of myself as like, I'm really dumb. So I'm just like, I can do that. And then I just go forward, I never think about the future. I'm not a good future tripper at all. Yeah. And I think that's the only thing that has helped me be successful in just getting stuff done is I'm just like, I could do that. Yeah. And then I just try.
Yeah.
And guess what? If it doesn't work out, no big deal.
Yeah.
I tried.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's such an awesome place to be, to be willing to give it a shot and then just keep pushing regardless of what happens.
Yeah, it's hard to, I get it. It's like there's a lot of reasons to not try things, but like I said, sometimes I'm just dumb and I'm like, I'm just going to try it anyway.
I choose to call it brave, Portia. Dude, thank you so much for coming through. I know that, I know you're busy, so.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure. I was really looking forward to this, and it did not disappoint.
Portia Sabin, Kill Rock Stars is a label. Future of What is the podcast. Look for her any place that stuff is happening, for sure. I know you on social media. Is the Twitter is KRS.
The Future of What Twitter is KRSFOW. My personal Twitter, which I never do, is Dr. Pork Chop.
So, after reading this really great article that I'm so sorry, I'm like in the later part, I'm gonna research and tell y'all what it is. That's when I found out you were doctor. Mm-hmm. So the Dr. Pork Chop thing makes more sense to me now.
Yeah, there you go. Now you're like, what was she talking about?
Put the two together. So definitely be on the look for more from my friend Portia Sabin. I have her email on my phone, so I know what's up.
Yeah.
Big ups to my folk over at Acapella Apparel for their continued support of the Klyph Notes podcast. Big ups to X-Ray FM for, again, allowing us to use this space to record. Be sure to subscribe and like and rate and comment anywhere you listen to your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, just wherever you listen to podcasts. Do that. Or hit me up all over social media at DJ Klyph, at DJ KLYPH, or hit the website djklyph.com. All right. Thank you so much, Portia.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. Y'all be
Sweet.
blessed. Peace.
Peace.